See?
Why am I in already?
Because I put you in already.
Okay.
Ready to try his little new toy.
Try my new toy out. Hold
You
this
know,
for me,
you
please.
know you just got to be
I
plugged up.
I know.
Okay.
Wait a minute, this on backwards.
No, it ain't.
The D piece for holding it is here.
Is that in the front?
Yeah. Hold it for me.
You don't knock yourself out now. Hold that. Yeah. It won't go that far, real.
Won't go that far?
Nope.
It gotta be that way.
Yep. That's the way it gonna have to be, like that. Wait a minute, before you make it fall now. What you do?
I moved it down.
Right there?
My hair is raggedy. Oh, I need a haircut bad. Somebody gotta get up the nerve to put a clipper on my head.
Yeah. Before it go dead. But the thing that
I know this side. Wait a minute.
you got a short cord, man.
I got a long one in my bag. A black one in my bag that's longer. In the middle part of the bag. Mhm. You know my backpack, I don't know about yours. Mine is starting to tear up. You know that? Mm-hmm.
Somebody plug to the battery? Is that one?
Yeah, let me see. It's black.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Is this battery charged up? No, probably done killed it.
No, we got to plug it in too.
It is killed. I'm trying to plug up the ring light. Now.
Sherry, I got a new toy, don't I? Mm-hmm. Got off for Amazon. It was $30-something. Huh? You said you'll want one then? And it has a carrying case too. You got a good battery, Loretta? Never mind. I said, never mind, I don't need a battery.
You need a battery for this light.
I just plugged it in. I had a head in my pocket. You know, the thing to go to the wall in my pocket. I don't care. That's her to let them people harass her.
You all right now?
Oh,
Your thing.
I'm good, thank you. No batteries.
You don't need no battery.
That's what I said, no batteries. I ain't got to worry about nothing running out of power. Putting on the camera and running around frantically. Now what I got to do is cut my phone off. And my phone is synced to this iPad and it will send calls through.
Well, go ahead and cut it off now. 12:15. Unless you want to stay it on to Ward to 1.
All we need to do is check and see if Varys can get on. Hey, Sherry, is that my idea to make Varys the MC? Huh? Shoot. I don't remember saying it, but I guess I must have said or something, huh? I asked her, well, she said that she don't remember. Mm.
See?
Well, okay, she didn't remember that she had said yes.
Then I sent it to her, then she told me she can't see.
Call my wifey. Then she want to go print it.
Yeah.
Because she don't know how to keep up with it online.
Sorry, I can only call one person at a time.
Call
Who
my
would you like to call?
Call my wifey.
Calling my wifey. Mobile.
I'm on the second panel, right?
Yeah, you on the second panel.
When do I speak? On the second panel. Because that'll give me time to figure out what I'm supposed to be saying. All right, who's gonna step in for her, Sherry? If she doesn't come on, I'll have trouble. You ready?
Not yet.
You online?
No.
That's right, the rest of us are.
I'm not gonna get dressed. I had to go to the office to get that stuff done.
You got it?
Yeah.
All right.
Only question that is how you pronounce the McEachin man name?
McEachin.
Keishan.
McEachin. I'm gonna sound it out.
Wait a minute. That woman, Papa had it. I always had Papa his name. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Mick, like Mickey Mouse, Mick. Then key, like the key you use to open the door. And then chin.
What?
Chin, like the chin on your face.
Oh, McEachin.
That's it.
Okay.
McEachin. You say McEachin.
McEachin?
McEachin.
McEachin.
Right.
Okay.
Like you rake his chin with a key. McEachin.
McEachin. McEachin.
McEachin.
McEachin.
Right.
McEachin.
Right.
Okay.
All right. You practice everything. You ready to go? Schedule is tight now. All right.
And for the welcome, can I just say good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our annual
Congressional briefing.
Yeah, congressional briefing. I just say that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the shorter, the shorter the better. Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't run over time.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
If I got a question, I'll call you back. Bye.
Yeah, well, ain't much more time. How much time we got till showtime, y'all? 10 minutes. 10 minutes to start.
What?
We start in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I thought it was 1 o'clock.
12:30. Everybody online at 12:30. We start in 10 minutes.
Oh, let me get dressed. I did not thought it was 1 o'clock. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
We gonna start at 1.
Hey, Leo.
Yes.
Hello. So what time we gonna start?
We start at 1.
Okay, so but you gonna be on at 12:30. Okay.
You need
bye.
to come in case there's something wrong or we need to fix something. Come in as early as possible.
All right. Let me get dressed. Bye.
Mm.
No, what she said, Allah, she said it to, then she said it to, Reverend
Do we have, we got anything to snack on? I'll go get it. I better not get any chips.
Ate some hummus, didn't you?
Like, oh, there was hummus in there? I just been eating the dry crackers.
I told you, I said, Jack got chips and hummus in here.
I think the hummus was separate and you
No,
had forgot to bring it.
it's right here.
I come over here, I come over here.
See? See all that right there?
Everybody need to get some evidence for it.
Well, he got. You want some glasses?
Whatever,
Huh?
whatever. Oh,
Let me wash some up that quick.
mm.
You want one, huh? Somebody called me.
That looks like, 865 or something. Like it might be a telemark. That is a little scratchy. That hummus is delicious. I ain't got no crackers. One more. Ain't no more. You like hummus? Okay, no, thank you.
I tried it, worked like it.
It's delicious. You know what you got that? There's some more there. Amber, you're gonna be the MC for this, okay? MC for the briefing, okay? You be the announcer. I'm on the kid. She'd do it though, wouldn't she?
So be good for.
We should let her MC sometime.
Yeah.
Good practice for
You don't want.
her. She said no.
That's me, are you on?
Mhm.
I got the video for some reason, your,
What video started?
the congressional meeting,
Well,
and I can see you, your camera on.
you can see me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I knew it was on, but you started it, let me turn my camera on.
The water chair.
Can't find my camera.
There you go, Rev. Here's your glass
Mm-hmm.
and your water.
Yeah, where's my camera? There's the mic.
You gotta tap on that.
That's Sherry.
Yes, sure.
Mhm.
Well, you,
Mhm.
yeah, I told him his camera on, but
How do I turn it on?
I don't see how to turn it off because he got it. Oh, here it is, way up here.
Mhm.
That's it.
Thank you.
Because it turned round. That's why.
Mhm.
Here's your water.
Thank you. We got people coming in yet?
Yeah, you got 8 people, ain't it? 10. Where you going? What you doing?
We're gonna light some incense.
You better come on here. I ain't on there. I'm getting ready to join. Now you say you want Laura's? Huh? I said you want a Laura's on. I mean, yeah, Laura. I said a lady because she on
The light is on.
yes. A Laura Carter. Okay. I'll see this. Okay. Share. It is shared. I'm sending it.
Better with my jacket off, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh. I started letting them in. Oh, my mic is on.
Good morning. How's everybody?
Who?
Hey, Minister Malcolm. Miss
Well,
Loretta,
Frank, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
Good
I
to
haven't
see you.
seen you this year, I don't think.
We haven't seen each other this year?
I don't think so, but where you
I
are,
think you're right.
where you are, it looks nice. I see spring behind you.
Hey, man, it's Alabama. I ain't nowhere but next door to you.
Yes,
I know
sir.
y'all ain't looking too bad.
Yeah, we got our trees budding too.
Good deal.
Where Miss Loretta go? Dr. Mack?
I'm here. I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I guess we'll give folks maybe one more minute to make sure everybody gets in, and then we'll get started, if that's okay with everyone.
Hey, Miss Catherine.
I
Hey,
wanna
Miss
make
Biggs,
sure
how
we-
you doing?
Oh, we're gonna start at 1 o'clock. Okay, that's fine. Hello, hello. So Reverend Woodbury, do you want to give us some words of encouragement prior to the 1 o'clock start? Or prep prior to the 1 o'clock start?
Sure, be happy to. You know, this is a very momentous occasion. We're in what I call a movement moment. And in order to appreciate the historical nature of what we're going through, we can go all the way back to 1971, the first Earth Day. And so that was 50 years ago, come April. That means that we have been laboring in the vineyard, you know, to get some real serious action around what I now call the climate crisis rather than climate change. And so it's taken us 50 years to get here. A lot of people literally have worked their fingers to the bone, and some came into this work and departed, you know, transitioned just to pass the torch on to others. And so we want to lay out specifically what the needs are that we have seen. We have a lot of great people here who do the work, who know the work well. And we want to make sure that whatever new normal we have after the pandemic, new normal because of the climate crisis, new normal because of redoing infrastructure and in essence restructuring our economy, that we have equity and that we have justice. and that we remember those with that long, long legacy of poverty and pollution and just all kinds of tremendous hurdles that have become even higher as the impacts of climate change increases and as we deal with the pandemic. And so I'm just very grateful. I'm thankful for all of you who are here and for an opportunity to, have a conversation with Congressman McEachin. And I understand that there'll be some other staffers from some other congressional offices available. And I'll just say this in closing. This is the beginning. So we hope to have many more encounters, conversations, listening sessions, etc., with other policymakers, people who work for the administration, people who work in agencies. And so now is our time. We don't have time to waste. It's getting late in the midnight hour. So if you know the Black church experience, the sun is going down. So we have to move and move quickly. So thank you so much. Thank you to all our panelists, our moderators, our speakers, and everyone who's in our audience, who is participating as a part of our electronic audience. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet at this point. I think, what time is it now? What time do we have?
It's 12:40.
12:40, okay. So
It's
if
12:40
everyone
this time,
is
yes.
good, and we can say what? We can open it up for folks to talk some, but what do we say? Maybe about 12:55. We definitely have to end the conversation, but we give people an opportunity to greet and speak with each other. Some of us haven't seen each other since the pandemic began. But at 12:55, we're going to ask everyone to mute themselves unless you're going to speak. Okay, and we appreciate you all. Okay, Sherry. So
Okay.
okay. No
So
cussing.
at 1:00, Varys is going to start at 1:00, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I want to be clear. Thank you.
He's one of those people.
Ms. Brown, you said you were getting on, didn't you?
Yes, sir, Mr. Frank. I am here. How you doing?
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
My sound's okay? Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
It's good to see you, Pastor Malik.
You're so kind. I'm not pastoring anymore, bro. You're so kind. You just call me Malik now, but it's fine. It's fine. I can't run from it. I guess once you do it, you can't run from it. So, but I leave it up to you gentlemen and ladies for continuing to work.
I still see that halo.
You still see it?
I still see it.
Bro, Malik, this is Michael Malcolm. Hey, shoot me your email, man. I was trying to get in touch with you and I couldn't find your email for nothing in the world.
Yeah, Malcolm, aren't you in Georgia, right?
I'm in Alabama now. I was in Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, man. Okay. Yep.
You want me to hit you up on Facebook? I can send it to you on Facebook.
Either way.
Okay.
Okay, everybody, I can't take all of this peace and quiet. Oh.
Well, I just wanted to say hey to people that I know already. It's really good to see y'all's faces, and also hey to the people I haven't met yet, and this is the first time we're like virtually meeting. I'm really honored to be here. So thank y'all.
Where are you? Where are you located?
I am in Birmingham, Alabama.
You're in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the weather is nice. I'm in South Carolina and I'm sitting outside. I'm in my backyard.
It feels so good outside. I'm actually alternating between like sitting in here where I have a desk and going outside and enjoying the sunlight. I'm trying to soak up as much of it as possible, you know?
That's right. Well, I brought a lawn chair and a folding table outside and I'm sitting outside.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Oh,
innovative.
I'm Virginia Sanders and I'm in Columbia, South Carolina.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Looks like we got folks from all over the country. That's so
Yeah.
exciting.
What issues are you working on?
So I work for the Southeast Climate Energy Network and the People's Justice Council in Alabama. SIN is a regional like nonprofit, but essentially what I do is focus on helping the South transition to a more resilient and sustainable region.
Great. That's great.
What do you do, Ms. Virginia?
I work for the National Sierra Club, and I'm working on climate change and global warming. Yeah. I've got people flooding when there isn't even a hurricane or a flood on the horizon. Rain causes flooding in some parts.
Dr.
Okay,
Mack, let me
thanks.
just,
Thanks, guys. It's 1 o'clock. We're gonna ask everyone to mute themselves, please, unless you're speaking. And we're gonna start with our welcome with Ms. Varys Woodbury. Thank you all.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
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 Right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
good afternoon.
And welcome to our annual congressional briefing. Our opening remarks will be coming from Congressman McEachin.
Well, hello, everyone. It is good to be with you. I'm Donald McEachin, and I have the privilege of representing Virginia's 4th Congressional District. I've also had the privilege of working with Reverend Leo Woodbury in the past, and it's good to be with him again. As many of you know, he's been such a leader in the area of environmental justice and the climate crisis, and it's just an honor to try to walk in his footsteps, as difficult as that is from time to time. We really are on the cusp of doing some really great things in the Congress in this session. What a difference it makes to have a president who believes that there is a climate crisis, to have a president who knows how to say the words environmental justice, and to have a president who is committed to making sure that we get on the path to a carbon-free economy by 2050. And there's a lot of work for us to do, and there's a lot of opportunity for us to do it. As you know, I've sponsored the Environmental Justice for All Act with the help of and the leadership really of Chairman Grijalva of the Natural Resources Committee. Together, we have listened to communities across the country as to their needs and their concerns and how best to empower them. This is the communities talking to Washington instead of Washington talking to the communities. And I think that legislation as proposed will make quite a difference for those communities. We've also sponsored the Clean Economy Act by 2050, which mandates that our national economy gets to a net zero carbon economy by 2050. This is so critically important because we don't have any time to lose. In 2016, when I first ran for the Congress, I said, and I stand by this comment, that notwithstanding any other crisis that we face, the climate crisis is the most important issue of the 21st century. Because if we don't get it right, there won't be a need for healthcare, there won't be a need for education, there won't be a need for much of anything. And so we need to make sure that we get this right. And in doing so, as I said earlier, it creates so many opportunities. The empowerment of those who've been disenfranchised through the Environmental Justice for All Act, the notion that we can recreate our economy and create green jobs, not just green jobs, but green union paying jobs, family sustaining jobs that will revolutionize our economy and our infrastructure. Whether it's helping transitional communities like EJ communities learn how to make windmills or solar panels, or helping them start businesses that do that, or other things in the environmental climate crisis area, such as refurbishing homes and buildings and the like. Helping them create small businesses is going to be so vitally important as we go forward. And to the extent that these businesses can be and are green, we are just helping ourselves and helping the economy. You are not here to hear me drone on. I could talk on and on, excuse me, about the wonderful work that Reverend Woodbury and others have done, but I'm going to cut off now and leave you to your conference by just saying this. I appreciate all the work that you've done. I appreciate the work that you all are doing. And I appreciate the opportunity to be your partner in this effort to save this wonderful, magnificent gift from the Lord above that we call the earth. God bless you. And again, thank you for assembling and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Yeah.
Our first speaker is Mustafa Ali, VP of Environmental Justice, National Wildlife Federation, Washington, D.C.
We seem to have lost Mustafa Santiago Ali briefly, and what we're going to do, Laura Carter, if you'll be so kind, would you speak in his stead, and then we'll hear from Mustafa a little later. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I wasn't expecting to go until later, but I guess I'll give you all a few words now. It's great to be here with you all digitally. I hope everyone's staying safe where they are. Special thanks to Reverend Woodbury for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to speak to you all. My name is Laura Carter. I'm a program manager of the Climate Reality Project. We are a nonprofit founded by former Vice President Al Gore after he released An Inconvenient Truth. And we do a lot of work around education about climate and environmental issues. And we charge other people with going out and educating more people about climate and environmental issues and bringing call to action throughout the US. My particular role, I get to work with communities like Reverend Woodbury and some other ones and do educational workshops on different issues and try to bring some fun into not teaching, but sharing about how we can combat climate change and environmental justice, among other issues that are happening in communities around the US. Well, I'll say that the theme of our time together, policies and communities, is a powerful one. We've seen throughout the years how communities have been affected by policies on the federal and local level. Some of these policies have had the opportunity to help people and others haven't. But through it all, we've learned and we're making steps to be ready for anything that comes our way. As we begin a new year and a new administration, this is a good opportunity for us to make policy work for us. Over the past year, we saw candidates running for every office possible finally decide to put climate and environment in their platforms. They were finally ready to address the issues and say climate change is real, we have to do more about it. We even saw the Biden-Harris administration say not only do they want to tackle climate change, but they want to now dive into environmental justice, which, as many people on the call here who've been doing EJ work for years, I'm sure we're happy to see, because they've been trying to get environmental justice on somebody's platform for as long as they can remember. You know, the Biden-Harris campaign has not only wanted to tackle climate change, environmental justice, and they set up several offices, positions, different things to start tackling that role, including us joining the Paris Climate Accord once again. So not to be a complete plug for them, but you know, they want to put $2 trillion into climate and environment, and they want to offer a number of other resources that can be helpful to us and the communities that we work for in a number of ways. Reverend Woodbury has made the statement of urgency, and he's absolutely right. It's not just urgency because we're in a catastrophic time of climate events, as we saw in Texas a few weeks ago, where they went from snow and ice storm to 70-degree weather in less than 7 days. Last year with our hurricanes, we've seen, you know, we're continuing to fight current environmental injustices happening in communities all over the US. And of course, we're all not together because the pandemic has kept us apart for over a year and sadly taken the lives of many people that we love and adore. This is an urgent time because we have an opportunity to help our communities. So as I said before, the Biden-Harris administration wants to put $2 trillion into climate and environment and give us a number of other resources. And we need to be ready to get these resources and to use them to transform our communities. So I think there are several ways we can do that. We can have a full-on class. I see Dr. Newsom is here, and I remember when I worked for her, she taught, I think it was it GW you were speaking at? Yeah, you taught at GW, and she could probably give a whole class on this, but I'll just share a few points with you all about how we can take this urgency that we're in now and we can use these resources to help our communities and to transform them. So I'll say we need to make sure that we're aware of programs that are available to us. And so we need to constantly keep up with what is the admin offering, what things are there for us to take advantage of. So we're talking about block grants, infrastructure grants, clean energy opportunities, because we will see the administration putting out things for people to write a brief statement on and receive these resources and these funds. So making sure that we know about the programs that are available to us and how we can receive those programs, whether it's through a grant application, whether it's through filled out a simple form, or it can just be calling DOE's Office of Clean Energy and saying, hey, I heard you all wanted to give out solar panels. How do I sign up for solar panels? So making sure we know about those to get them to our communities. Building relationships with government agencies on the federal and local level so they can be resources to our communities. We of course, our last EPA administrator, the last two during the previous administration, weren't the best people for the job. So I know people say build a relationship with them. Why would I want to talk to anyone from EPA? But there are still great people in the EPA. Mustafa, when he comes on the call, could definitely tell you that from his many years of service there, who want to work with communities, who are ready to help, and who are ready to do the work. And so building good relationships with them so that they can be resources for upcoming things we can take advantage of, ways for us to get resources, but also speak to them about our needs, what we need as a community, what our thoughts are on a policy, because, you know, a lot of us, I'm in the DC area, they're in DC, they can't tell you exactly what's happening in Birmingham, Alabama. They can tell you what from our data, but they need to hear from community members who live through the trauma and live through the issues that happen in their communities every day. Getting members of our communities involved in the policy process. We have to stop thinking that policy is for political scientists and folks who study trends and economics for years, and people who sit in the DC offices that one of the ones I work in are the only policy experts. People in our communities can be involved in policy. They can be involved in how it's written. They can be involved in the changes made to it, and they can be involved in how it's enforced. So getting our community members to understand policy better and not make it a super college educated thing, but a very simple thing that anyone can have a part in. And the final thing I'll say is making sure resources are going to communities that need it. We're finally going to see some much needed money and among other things come, you know, from federal level, and hopefully some states too, to do great environmental work. And when that money comes, though it's not a lot of the time, it gets snatched up by the same 4 or 5 people, and then it gets the trickle down effect, and we hope it makes it to communities, or people may say it's making it to a community, but it doesn't always end up that way. And as a person who works for what may be considered a big green, you know, we as big greens have to make a point to say, okay, you know, you want to give us all this money, but have you reached out to the folk in New Mexico who are battling issues with environmental health and cancer? You want to give us this money, we're happy for it, but have you reached out to the folks in Wheeling, West Virginia who are fighting an ethane cracker plant, and they want to get legal defense and they have no money to do it, and this company is just throwing them in the mud? We've got to take a new stand of saying, you know, yes, we will take the money, we're happy to, but do we really need to take this money and hire 2 new organizers to do the work? Or should we step back and give someone else this money who lives in the community, who needs it, to do the work? And so we've got to make sure that money and other resources are being given directly to communities. I know there's a number, we can get into a whole entire thing about that. I know Dr. Newsom, she works in the philanthropy field. We might have some others in the philanthropy field who can definitely give you some different testimony on that. But I think that's a good sentiment that we need to all think about. It's big greens, but also with some of the smaller grassroots orgs and the community orgs, you know, making sure that we figure out how to make sure your voices are heard in a number of issues, as well as, you know, getting you all in the right room to say, we need it, we're gonna do the best with it, and making sure that even if we are given the money first, that and we're allowed to re-grant or to re-gift, that we're being a resource to you in the field of, okay, if you need admin help, let's help you with admin. If you need this type of resource, let's do it, so that we're getting the resources to our communities the best way we can, and that we are, you know, making sure that we're utilizing it and we're making real change besides, you know, the things that don't always get completed the way we like them to. So those are my just thoughts on what's happening here today. And, you know, Climate Reality is happy to be a resource to any grassroots group any way we can. We do give out yearly grants, and our grant cycle is open right now. So if anyone wants more information, you can feel free to get my contact and I can email you the application. And yes, thank you for this time together. And I'll give it back to you, Reverend Woodbury.
Thank you, Laura. Our moderator for our first panel is Jalon White Newsom, CEO, EGE2.
Hello, everyone, and greetings. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, first and foremost, I'm calling from Southeastern Michigan, the original lands of the Potawatomi, and I am just honored and privileged to be here. Honored and privileged to be around all these great leaders, the vision and resilience of all the folks on this phone, the folks that I know and don't know. I just already know that you're awesome and great. And it's also wonderful to realize, one, how old I am when an intern of mine is just spouting truth and knowledge. So Laura, many blessings to you, and I'm so proud of you. So I want to also give thanks to Reverend Woodbury and the New Alpha Development Corporation. Again, you have been a friend and a father to me in many ways. So I want to appreciate you and Miss Loretta and your beautiful wife, and want to acknowledge, even in his absence, Congressman McEachin, because back in the day when there was the EPA Clean Power Plan, he opened up his heart and his office to me and my folks, and he was very willing to listen to how we needed to do an environmental justice analysis of what the Clean Power Plan was going to do, not only to the state of Virginia, but the United States of America. So thank you, Representative McEachin, for always being there and being present. And so I am excited to bring on a group of wonderful folks, some again that I know and some that I don't know. But what I will say is that I am sure that they are going to give you some intense knowledge. And as we talk about the need for policies in community, what I will say is that, you know, when you talk about solutions being ground up, I imagine that these folks that you're going to hear from are also groundbreakers. And so I encourage you to get your pens and pads ready, and we're going to get some knowledge going. So what we're going to do, we're going to give folks 5 minutes to share their thoughts. I'm going to simply say the name and the organization because we want to maximize our time. So everybody will have about 5 minutes, and then hopefully we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So with that, I want to introduce Ms. Dana Smith, the Executive Director of the Dogwood Alliance. Dana, if you can just give a wave real quick. I don't know if people can see you, depending on what view they're in Zoom. I want to also introduce Alex Easdale, the Executive Director of SCN. I think you heard from his colleague earlier, Abigail, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know what to do.
Okay, there's some other folks. If you're not speaking, if you could mute for me, that would be wonderful. I want to also introduce Reverend Malik Sefer. Hopefully I'm saying that correct, and if not, please correct me. From BCLC, from very close to my husband's hometown of Little Rock, Arkansas. Of course, the wonderful Executive Director, Loretta Slater of the Whitney M. Slater Foundation, and Mr. Frank Figures, Program Manager for One Voice in Jackson, Mississippi. So let's again give some virtual good vibes to our speakers. And Dana Smith, we're going to kick it off with you, and I'll try and give you a note when you're getting close to your 5-minute time. Ms. Woodbury, did you want to say something?
Yes. Before we get started with the panel, we're gonna Mr. Mustafa's here. We're gonna let her speak now.
Okay, we'll go with the flow.
You know that is.
Hey, Jalon, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
You too. I got my mountain beard on for everybody, just for this occasion. I'll be brief. I want to thank everybody. Of course, I want to thank Reverend Woodbury, New Alpha, and the entire family for all you continue to do to make justice become a reality for our communities. We know that that will not happen unless we stay fully engaged in the process and hold everyone accountable. Doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, you are going to be held accountable because you are utilizing our tax dollars, and we want to make sure that they move in the right direction. And we know that Congressman McEachin and others have been very supportive in not only hearing our voices, but also then translating that into that policy that is so critically important. And we understand that policy can be used in a positive or a negative way. And we understand also that policy that is fueled by systemic racism has had some incredibly devastating impacts inside of our communities. Everything from our indigenous brothers and sisters being taken away from their traditional lands and their traditional foods, to that same sets of policies fueled by racism to bring Africans to our country, to that same policy that is used to stop women from being able to vote and to own land and all the things that are necessary for us to make change. And that same policy that has been utilized to have restrictive covenances and redlining and a number of other things that have created sacrifice zones across our country that many of us work on to change that set of dynamics. And we also understand that policy has the ability to be transformative. Policy has the ability to change the fact that we got 100,000 people who are dying prematurely from air pollution every year in our country, more dying from air pollution than are dying from gun violence, more that are dying from air pollution than are dying from car crashes. And we also understand that when we think about how policy can make transformative change, we are asking both brothers and sisters on Capitol Hill and in state houses to finally fully embrace cumulative impacts and how it plays a role in our communities by the synergistic and cumulative effects from all of these different factories and other greenhouse gas emitting and pollution emitting facilities that are often located inside of our communities. And if we do that, then maybe we can address the fact that we got 24 million folks in our country are suffering from asthma and 7 million kids. And the fact that many of them are African-American, Latinx, Indigenous, Asian and Pacific Islander, and yes, lower wealth white communities are also dealing with these impacts that are going on. That same policy that is so critically important to our communities can address the 80 million people in our country who are underinsured and uninsured. And we know those numbers have even grown with COVID-19 currently going on. We also understand that policy, and we're thankful to Joe Biden for getting folks back into the clean power plan, or excuse me, he ain't done that yet, making sure that we get back into addressing our global sets of impacts. But yes, we want you to also get the clean power plan and the other steps in place as well to make sure that we no longer have to deal with these impacts that are happening and causing these long-term medical conditions that therefore are creating, liver and kidney diseases, all these breathing difficulties, and also that has made us more vulnerable to COVID-19. So we understand that when you focus on the air issues that are going on in places like Port Arthur, Texas, or in the Manchester community in Houston, Texas, or the 48217 in Detroit, or in Institute, West Virginia, yes, there are these issues that are going on in the rural context as well, that we can change a number of different things that are happening inside of our community. So we're so incredibly looking forward to those sets of engagements and making sure that things like the Environmental Justice for All Act become a reality, that fully funded, and that the various pieces that can help us to finally make sure that folks are not only no longer unseen and unheard, but that they also are being benefited by what's going on. We are moving into a space now where we know that there are going to be trillions of dollars that are going to move in relationship to the Infrastructure Act, that are going to be moving in relationship to the Climate Act. We've all heard about the $2 million and the 40% that are going to our communities that can help us to make real change happen. We also have to understand that we've got some dynamics that are happening and that we have some capacity that needs to be built if we're going to have real talk today. And what that means is that the states and the county governments are also going to need to make sure that they have the environmental justice competencies that are necessary for them to be able to live out this bridge of sets of opportunities that move from the federal to the state to the county. And we also got to make sure that the frontline organizations who've been doing the work for decades now are finally remunerated. And if we're not willing to do that, then we're missing a huge set of opportunities. We also are very clear that when we talk about, and I know there are some amazing folks who are going to talk about water infrastructure and the lack of access and affordability in that space, that there are a number of contracting and subcontracting opportunities that are going to be a part of that. So this is just Mustafa speaking and not for anybody else. If we know that our country is now 40% people of color, then that means that 40% of those grants and 40% of the contracts and subcontracting opportunities should be going to folks of color. You have individuals right now on this call today who own their own businesses in this space. But we also know if we're going to have real talk, and we need your help on this, the fact is that when we talk about the new clean economy, less than 2% of the jobs that are owned, the businesses in that space, are run by African Americans and Latinx and indigenous folks. So if we know that, then we have to build into our legislation the steps that are necessary to address that lack of capacity and that lack of access to the ownership. Because we know when we own our own businesses in this climate economy, then that we are going to hire folks who come from our communities, folks who look like us, which will then therefore build wealth, which is another part. We have two paradigms that are going on in the environmental justice work. We have the impact side of the equation, and then we have the jobs and ownership side of the equation, and they both go hand in hand. So we need the attention to be focused in those directions so that we can make real change happen. And if we do this right, we can address the 24 million people who are living in food insecure areas and the 25 million folks who are living in medically underserved areas, because all of that ties into the impacts that are happening inside of our communities. And our legislation has to reflect that if we're going to make real change happen. And it's real clear as I close, we cannot win on climate change if we don't win on environmental justice or make sure that we're eliminating environmental racism. The majority of the fossil fuel facilities and the co-pollutants that come out of those are located inside of our communities. That pipeline that many people continue to fight against, the 2.4 to 2.8 million miles of pipeline, enough to go to the moon and back twice, that is running through indigenous land. It is running through farmland. It is running through lower wealth white land and ending up in Black and brown communities across our country, like the Byhalia pipeline fights that are going on, or the Bayou Bridge that has been going on, or all the fights that our indigenous brothers and sisters have been engaged in. So if we're going to win on climate change, then we got to get very, very serious about environmental injustices that continue to happen. And I would be remiss if I did not also call out the fact that we still have not hired the environmental justice senior advisors in the 17 agencies and departments that have a distinct responsibility for environmental justice. We can make sure that we're pushing there. And since we're here with our Capitol Hill family, as I close, we should also make sure that the committees that are there with so many committed folks to this issue are hiring environmental justice folks with expertise for those committees. Doesn't matter if we're talking, I won't even go into all the committees. We all know all the committees that exist. If we're going to build real infrastructures to address our issues in all of these various areas, then you got to start with making sure that you have the folks with the competencies to help to guide you through this process and help to make sure that you are as successful as I know each and every one of you want to be. So with that being said, I want to thank all of the incredible folks who are participating in this for your dedication over the years. I want to thank Congressman McEachin and all the other folks there on Capitol Hill who I know are anchored to making real change happen. And together we can win. So thank you all so much. I'm Mustafa Santiago Ali.
Thank you so much.
So I guess that's me. Thanks so much, Mustafa. Yes, together we can win. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be with you guys today. I really want to thank Congressman McEachin and Reverend Leo Woodbury for organizing this briefing. And I'm here to talk about the vital role of forests in advancing justice and stabilizing the climate while supporting healthy rural communities. Our forests are vital to solving the climate crisis. When left standing, forests can remove vast amounts of carbon from the atmosphere, provide natural flood control to keep our communities safe, and ensure an abundant supply of fresh, clean drinking water. When forests are logged, they release carbon that would otherwise be stored, and their ability to provide other life-supporting functions is compromised. It can take up to a century or more for forest ecosystems to fully recover after a clear cut. We all know that President Biden has signed a series of executive orders on climate change, including an executive order on environmental justice. And now that we have a specific commitment from the administration to protect 30% of US lands by 2030, the right framework exists at the highest levels of our government for ensuring that some of the $1 trillion coming down the pike for greening the economy get directed at forest protection in the southern US in ways that address the disproportionate impacts and long-standing inequities associated with forest destruction. Rural communities of the southern US have been a sacrifice zone. They are at the front of global wood production and forest destruction. Experts estimate that the rate and scale of industrial forest destruction from logging is 4 times that of South American rainforest. And those southern forests are our nation's most diverse. They are the least protected. Low-income communities of color across the rural southern Black Belt are bearing the brunt of the impacts of our nation's industrial logging and wood production. They're also on the front lines of climate change, having suffered recently devastating impacts from extreme flooding over the last 5 years. Along with the forest destruction, large wood product factories emit pollution into the air and water. The Black Belt is often referred to as America's third world due to the concentration of poverty, unemployment, and other indicators of socioeconomic stress. Logging and wood production has yet to deliver economic benefits to these rural communities and is putting their health at risk and putting them at greater risk for climate change. Recently, these same exact communities have become the target of a rapidly expanding new market for wood pellets. Power stations in Europe are burning these pellets under the guise of green renewable energy. And government at every level has been ignoring community concerns about the air pollution and the clear cutting of forests along rivers that provide natural flood protection. Demands for green jobs are being met with the same old rhetoric about how green and sustainable the forest industry is. Even scientists' warnings that burning wood and logging is a false climate solution are not being heard. The need for a new approach to forest policy can no longer be ignored. Only 15% of the land in the South is in public ownership compared to nearly 50% out West. Of the 85% of the forest land in the South in private ownership, Black and Native Americans own less than 1% due to a long history of discriminatory policies and practices. And this disparity in land ownership disproportionately restricts communities' access to nature, its associated community benefits, and the economic development opportunities. But frontline communities in the South who are living this reality every day understand the problems better than anyone, and they're already working on solutions in the places that they call home. For example, the PD Indian tribe in South Carolina is in the process of building a cultural, nature, and outdoor recreation center on land they recently acquired. Instead of logging the wetland forest, they're building a boardwalk and camping platforms. That's because outdoor recreation generates 6 times more jobs than the forest industry and contributes 118 billion more to the Southern economy. The rural community of Britton's Neck in the PD watershed of South Carolina is in the process of developing a community-led forest protection action plan. They're looking to purchase land that would be owned and managed by the community. They're looking to pass ordinances that restrict logging in wetland forests and encourage outdoor recreation, agroforestry, and ecosystem restoration instead. The opportunity to invest in these kinds of community forest projects is now. The scientists have noted around the world that forests managed by indigenous people and local communities versus private individuals or corporations are more protected and less disturbed. So by centering the needs and solutions of communities on the front lines of forest destruction in the US, we can build back a better, more equitable forest economy, shore up natural flood protection against the worst climate impacts, and help solve the climate crisis at the same time. I'm going to now hand it over to Alex, who's going to talk about the Southern communities for a Green New Deal. I would really urge lawmakers who are on this call, staff of lawmakers, to really dig into this document and embrace the roadmap that it creates. There's a whole section on forest policy outlined in the Southern communities for a Green New Deal. And as you look to advance climate solutions and build back a better, greener, more equitable economy, this document can provide a great roadmap for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Can you all hear me? I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. Alex Seasdale, Executive Director of the Southeast Climate and Energy Network. This is funny because Dana, I remember last year we were driving in a cold day. I think it was March 13. DC shut down the next day because of COVID. And I was just thinking about how quickly things can change. Sometimes for the worse, but maybe leading to something better. Clearly, we're in the midst of a transition. We had a different president back then as well. So, you know, we have an opportunity here. And I'm going to talk to you very briefly about this project that, along with Dana, the Reverend Leo Woodbury, Colette Pichon Battle of Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy, and also Michael Hansen of GASP, Alabama, we have anchored a project that's really come to fruition in the manifestation of a policy document that Dana mentioned, a beautiful document that talks about democracy, economy and labor, forest and land, energy and water. And to go to Laura's earlier point, you know, it's when she talked about folks in DC don't know what's happening in Birmingham, Alabama, that really stood out to me. Laura also mentioned, and so did Mustafa, the importance of money, the importance of real resources, getting to the grassroots. I'm actually in the process of writing an op-ed, basically talking about funding the grassroots. The money needs to get there. So what happened with this project? This project has been undergoing a process that took a little over a year. This project was inspired by the Reverend Leo Woodbury's Justice First Tour. I would recommend you look it up. This is in 2018. The Reverend and many others went throughout 22 cities in the Southeast. In fact, it was so popular that they invited them to go to New York and New Jersey. But the concept of the Justice First Tour, as I understand it, was not just about climate change or environmental justice, but it was about criminal justice. It was about gentrification. It was about climate migration. It was about health issues, right? The impacts of the climate, and specifically on certain communities more than others. And I love the idea, the intersectionality of what we talked about in these meetings. I helped host one in Miami and one in Tampa here in the state of Florida, which is my home. And it was also inspired by another initiative called Gulf South for a Green New Deal, which is led by Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy. And they created a platform document, if you will. They're maybe a year ahead of us. But using that, the Gulf South for Green New Deal and the Justice First Tour model, we kind of came together with the idea for a Southern Communities for a Green New Deal. So expanding the Gulf South all the way to the rest of the Southeast. So now we're talking about 13 states that represent about 100 million people. That 13 states of the Southeast and Texas would be the 4th largest economy in the world. The Gulf South alone has over 50 military bases, tons of universities. The South is underrated. The South is misunderstood. This is not the South of 50 years ago or 30 years ago. This is one of the most dynamic regions in the world. It is diverse. I personally am from the country of Argentina. I live in an extremely diverse region in South Florida. But I've gone to Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama, different states that have become much more diverse, richer. And we have a legacy, we have a history of community organizing, of fighting injustice. And I think this region really needs to be heard. So the whole concept behind the Southern Communities for Green New Deal was inspired by that and actually funded with a seed grant from the U.S. Climate Action Network. I think I saw Carrie Clayton here, my good friend and former colleague. I used to be a consultant for USCAN when SEN, when the Southeast Climate and Energy Network was a project with USCAN for over a decade. I was a consultant and helped, along with the Reverend Woodbury and many others, transition SEN into its own network. We're now a network of 65 organizations. We're now an organization that's growing. Before it used to be just me trying to do everything. Now I have a team. I see my good friend Abigail, who keeps me on task with this particular project. Sofia Pesaño, who is our communications and programs coordinator. Dallas Conyer, who's our Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion manager coming in. So in any case, so this project is extremely significant, and I don't know how much time I have, but I do want to bring up a few of the needs and maybe propose recommendations that we need so our elected officials can hear them. So keep in mind that Florida and Texas have the largest Hispanic populations along with California in the country. Keep in mind that the South has crumbling infrastructure or a complete lack thereof, and 1/5 of the population in the South lives in poverty. Keep in mind the sea level rise and flooding are a huge issue, not only in the Gulf Coast region, but also, again, in South Florida and South Carolina. Huge, huge problem. Climate gentrification is also becoming an increasing issue and has been a problem. Extreme weather and heat. The year 2020 has been the most active season on record, not only in terms of the number of hurricanes and storms, but also the number of dangerous storms. Heck, 15 of the last 16 years have been the hottest on record. We have a fossil fuel economy that's completely unnecessary. If the South were its own country, it would be the 8th largest CO2 emitter in the world, while 4 of the top 5 largest climate polluters in the U.S. power sector serve in the South. Dana mentioned forest destruction. Logging is the largest driver of carbon loss from southern forests, accounting for 92% of forest emissions in the region. And the rate and scale of forest destruction in the southeastern U.S. is estimated to be 4 times more than the rainforest. Agriculture, due to our system's profits or, addiction for profits from mega farms and monoculture, industrial agriculture fails to allow crop rotation that would capture carbon dioxide. The industrial livestock industry, such as chicken or hog farms or cattle farming, use a tremendous amount of land and water. Energy burden. Southern communities are overwhelmingly face an energy burden. Average utility bills in the South are among the highest of any region in the country. Heck, some folks that I met from Mississippi pay $600+ a month electric bills. I mean, that's ridiculously insane. There are some solutions that I want to propose here if I have another minute, but I'm asking now. All right, I'm not being interrupted.
One more minute, Alex.
Thank you, Jaloni. You're awesome. Thank you. All right, we need to provide direct funding to pursue pumping stations as a solution to sea level rise and provide resources for vulnerable communities to elevate and flood-proof their homes. Yeah. Money needs to be made available to counties so that those with wealth can be connected to a rural water and critical infrastructure upgrades and necessary technological advancements can be made to ensure everyone has access to safe, clean drinking water. We need to invest in improving health outcomes in our EJ communities. This would include community and worker education and transparent disclosure about the health impacts of polluting industries. Funding needs to be allocated for cleaning up the industrial and utility pollution in our land, communities, and water. Fund equitable and just relocation of communities from near polluting industries. Invest in more sustainable and regenerative use and production of our natural resources. We can create millions of living wage jobs as we transform our energy, transportation, agricultural, manufacturing, construction industries to be more sustainable and regenerative. And I'll just say one more. Last but not least, and I'll say it again, invest in the grassroots communities that are doing the work. And this should have happened long, long ago. And I'm saying invest the heck out of the grassroots. Thanks so much for your patience, Jolene.
No problem. Thank you so much, Alex. And so we're going to have Reverend Malik. And if we can try and maybe keep it to 5 to 6 minutes, so we might have about 5 minutes for Q&A, that would be great.
You would put the preacher last, wouldn't you?
You're not last. You're in the middle.
Okay.
Go for it.
Thank you all for allowing me to share this space with you all digitally, although I know that we do share space in the movement together around climate and environmental justice. I was asked to provide a theological perspective from the vantage point of the Black Christian Leaders Coalition. And so to fulfill that task, I wanted to basically just offer up a theological perspective from the standpoint of no Black taxation without the Black church representation. And the reason I'm using this as a kind of a centering moment right now is because of the fact that the Black tax has been paid in this country. And yet the Black church is not at the center of the conversation about how we should be in some ways compensated for the taxation that we've experienced. So there's a story in the gospel, for those of you who are familiar with the Christian tradition and the gospel stories. There's a story in the gospel of Luke, the 19th chapter, that deals with a conversation between Jesus of Nazareth and Zacchaeus, the tax collector. And in this story, I just wanted to highlight some observations that can be made from the Black church perspective as it relates to climate and environmental justice. In this story, Jesus is now at the celebratory years of his life where people have known about his work around ending poverty in the Greco-Roman Empire. And Zacchaeus finds Jesus in the midst of his ministry to the poor and makes himself known to Jesus. And as a result of that, Jesus asks Zacchaeus to have dinner with him at Zacchaeus' house. And when Zacchaeus invites Jesus to his dinner table, he begins to confess his sins to Jesus. And this is what was shocking to people in this story. Zacchaeus does the unthinkable thing from the standpoint of someone who is in that day and time super rich. He declares and he confessed that he's going to give half his wealth to the poor. And for anybody he's robbed, he's going to give back 4 times whatever that was taken from them. And then in turn, Jesus, as the Christian community has practiced for over 2,000 years, forgives Zacchaeus for his sins. And Zacchaeus sets the moral example for others who have wealth and have required the poor to carry the unjust burden of a tax system without representation. So today we're not in the 1st century, nor are we at Zacchaeus' dinner table, but we're in 2021. And we're at the table of governments, philanthropic organizations, religious organizations, and we're asking no Black taxation without the Black church's representation. So Jesus of Nazareth's response to the unjust taxation and unequal distribution of wealth by the government of Rome is symbolic of unjust taxation and an unequal distribution of wealth by the government of the United States of America and the corporate sector that helped build the economic foundation for this country. Black Americans bear an unjust and heavy burden of poverty and poison. We pay the Black tax of poverty as working poor, carrying a heavier tax burden than the super rich. We pay the Black tax of poison as the working poor, carrying a heavier ecological burden than the super rich. So this story is significant to the climate and environmental justice movement in the following ways. The Black Christian Leaders Coalition asks that the government response like Zacchaeus, philanthropic organizations, nonprofits, religious organizations respond like Zacchaeus and give the Black church a seat at the climate and environmental justice table. The Black Christian Coalition asks for organizations that have already positioned themselves in the climate and environmental justice movement to respond like Zacchaeus in the following ways. One, redistribute current funding for climate and environmental justice programs so that poor Black Americans, working Black Americans, will become the primary, not the secondary or third, but the primary recipients of funding to help reduce the burden, the taxation of poverty and poison in our communities. Two, to restore trusting relationships with poor Black communities that have been lied to for centuries, that we were going to be healed. Our communities were going to be cleaned from poverty and poisons that have been the outcome of environmental racism. Third, regenerate the wealth, not pacify, not limit, but regenerate the wealth, meaning that all monies that are given to poor Black communities will be money that is not charitable donations, but justice donations. Because charitable donations limit the capacity for Black people to build wealth, regenerate wealth in their communities. But a just distribution of wealth will allow for monies to be truly seed unrestricted funds to allow for innovation and regeneration of wealth. And lastly, to provide a reserve emergency fund so that when we are experiencing in the poor working Black communities environmental crises, that we will now have funds that we can now use to rebuild our homes, hospitals, schools, our religious institutions, and the things, recreational spaces, the things that help our communities remain healthy. And if all these organizations that are now poised to be recipients of funding or to give funding for the climate and environmental justice movement, if they will respond to this request, then they will ensure that there's no Black taxation without the Black church's representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Malik. So can we just sit for like 30 seconds with everything that we've heard? Because it's powerful. Just reminding us when we talk about taking action, looking at the Southern Communities for a Green New Deal platform, acknowledging the importance of forests, as Dana pointed out, and Reverend Malik, redistributing, restoring, regenerating, and creating a reserve emergency fund in terms of, again, Black taxation. That's a lot to sit with. And I just want to, before we move on to Ms. Loretta Slater, as someone that has come from philanthropy as of a month ago, I hear you and I feel you. And now to Mustafa's point of we need to ready ourselves to be able to absorb and create the infrastructure and capacity so we can begin to build wealth, as Reverend Malik points to. And as a new African-American woman business owner, I take that and we need to think about that. How do we begin to build wealth and break off the structural pieces that have kept us down for so long? So thank the first three of you, and we have two more heavy hitters. So Miss Loretta, if you want to come to us now. I don't know if I see you. Okay. Miss Loretta, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Go for it.
Thank you for that, Ms. Jalon. And thank everybody for being on here. My name is Loretta Slater. I'm the Executive Director of the Whitney M. Slater, and I'm here today to, because of environmental health crisis and pollution that are impacts the safety and lives of people in our community. My daughter, Whitney, whom the foundation is named after, we was living between two pollutant facilities. At the age of 19, she contracted breast cancer, and I lost her at 21. There are two policies I wanted to talk about. One that I feel that into issue that doesn't happen to another child or another family. The EPA needs to consider community impacts. Currently, when they license these facilities, they only look at one toxins coming out of one facility. I live between two of them. I wish they would look at both of the facilities that are where I lived at, and perhaps my daughter would have been alive today. The second policy I want them to look at to do something with the FDA, trial drugs that we cannot use unless getting second opinions. In our state that we lived in, but also where the treatments are offered. By the time that we got approved for the drug that could help her, I lost my daughter. I wanted to thank, you for this opportunity, everybody, this opportunity, and I hope Representative McEachin will move swiftly on both of these policies to recommend as we are losing people daily. We're asking that you address the issues and being the first representative of our time to push these policies ahead. We appreciate your efforts in advance, and I'll thank y'all for listening to me at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Loretta, so much for sharing, your personal story. And I think, again, the two calls to action. And I hope from this that folks are not only taking notes, but we follow up this with specific people, specific language that people can begin to press, not only at the federal level, but at the state and local level, which is where the rubber meets the road. So the cumulative impacts piece is something that's been this so hard to reach thing for too long. It's enough excuses. We need cumulative impacts in our policy analysis at the federal, state, and local level.
Yes.
To the piece of the FDA trials, definitely, Ms. Loretta, like it's no time. The time to wait is over.
That's right.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank
you. Definitely. And last but not least, Mr. Frank Figures from One Voice, if you could come share with us now.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Newsom, thank you very much. And thank all of you all for what you have contributed to make this moment so meaningful. To the congressperson and to everybody else. Our vote matters. The people of the state of Mississippi are voting for policy rather than personalities. Policies determine in part how the personalities who are elected will govern. Policies also determine how and what kind of lives people will live in the process of being governed. Policies are present in every aspect of human life and interaction: education, environmental justice, healthcare, voting rights, criminal justice, just to name a few. People must be able to make wise choices in a democracy. In a democracy, tyrants can be elected or chosen to govern, but an informed citizenry can defeat tyranny every time. We are in a position, because of our various affiliations, to inform a significant number of citizens on the environmental devastation that is taking place on the planet. We are a part of a group of people where over 60% of us pre-pandemic gathered on a weekly basis, and over 80% of us still identify with. In fact, in our gatherings, there are already platforms in existence designed specifically for the purpose of sharing and disseminating information. Every aspect of human existence is determined by ecology. The ecology of the planet is determined by how people manage, use, and care for the resources of the earth. In many instances, policy determines the governance or stewardship of the planet's resources. A wise theologian once asked a question: whose earth is it anyway? Of course, the answer came back: the earth is the Lord's, all that is in it, the world, and those who live in it. When we engage citizens who then elect people who will enact and draft policies that reflects the sentiments, we sustain life on the planet, the life of plants, animals, resources, and of course, humans. Madam, I yield the rest of my time to the platform.
Thank you so much, sir. I just have to highlight what you said again. Informed citizenry can defeat tyranny any day or any time. I love that. And I know we have a couple of minutes for question and answer, but I want to make sure, Ms. Woodbury, do we have at least 5 minutes? Or do we need to keep it to 2? Or Reverend Woodbury, just give me some direction.
Yes, 5 minutes will be great.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir. So if folks want to put in the chat some questions you have for our speakers, questions or comments, that would be wonderful. I'm trying to see if I see any. I don't think so. Well, I guess I'll kick off maybe with one question. In addition, because you all gave a lot of ideas about what our governments at all levels need to do. What do you think is the one most important thing that you want folks to leave with today for us to see the transformative change to dismantle the structural institutional racism? What is the most important thing that you want folks to take with them today, in addition to all the stuff you said before? So maybe we can start with Dana. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing is that communities that are on the front lines have the solutions, and they need to be at the table, and they need to have the resources to implement those solutions. And this old approach of experts at the top trying to figure out what's best for communities needs to yield to a new way of thinking around really embracing the voices and the expertise of people whose lived experiences are more important in defining the solutions than anything else.
Thank you, Dana. Alex.
Yeah, thank you, Deloni. I would build upon what Dana said. I think the role of power is very important. And I think the fact that we're in the process of movement building, and there's a lot of us. One thing that I failed to mention in my presentation is that in less than 2 weeks, our policy platform has already 200 organizations that signed on. That's a big deal. In less than 2 weeks, over 200, and that'll be over 1,000 in no time if we really push. So I think that the process of movement building is critically important, and we should not underestimate that.
Thank you. Reverend Malik.
Well, I'm speaking from the Black church perspective. I would say right now, the government and philanthropic or private donors need to shift the funding that they have allocated for social justice programs in the Black community that are faith-based to climate and environmental justice funding and programs, to get the church to realize that they have to move from a single issue platform to a comprehensive platform. And I think when the funding shifts, then the Black church will shift with it, even if they did not want to, because they're going to follow the money too. And so I think that us in the Black church who are fighting for the minority, be able to now look to the majority to come over to our side, basically.
Thank
So that's
you.
what I would say.
Yeah. If everybody can mute, if you're not talking, I just want to make sure we're hearing this wisdom. Miss Loretta, you have a comment for us?
Yes, I'm coming from the community. We got to have the community ready and educated, because we don't want the same old people getting the same money, getting the money coming down, and it doesn't go to the community special groups that working on the ground. It's time out for that just throwing a couple of crumbs up under the table and everybody fighting for those few little crumbs. So I'm all for the people that is working on the ground to get this money instead of the usual suspects.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Miss Loretta. And Mr. Frank.
Yes, ma'am. I would just love to restate what has been previously stated about the role and importance of good information and how people make decisions based on the best information possible. The classic example was Minister Malik just interpreted a passage from the Gospel of St. Luke. His interpretation is not a widely used interpretation, but that interpretation can help people. The way that it's interpreted can help people make better decisions about the lives that they live and the lives that they desire for themselves to live and their posterity. So we need avenues to get the right, clear information to people.
Thank you. Thank you. So I just want to, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but thank all of our speakers for just sharing their wisdom. And I just want to charge each and every one of us to commit to taking one action after this conversation, whatever it is. I encourage you to put your contact information in the chat so folks are able to reach out to you and touch you, whatever. and connect with someone you don't know. Because again, as we begin to build this interconnected network, we are stronger together. I'm a firm believer in that. And I also just want to leave you with this thought of what will it take to get our communities ready and positioned to receive the trillions of dollars and the resources that are out there? That is the question that we need to begin to ask, because we often, again, thinking about with my philanthropy hat on, it's this deficit mindset when really there are so many assets across these communities. There just needs to be a little bit more of infrastructure there. So what is it going to take to get the communities that you represent, that you're sitting here for, to be ready to receive and in a position to receive? So let's think about solutions. And I just want to thank you all for your time and the privilege to be here. And I will turn it back over to Ms. Woodbury.
Thank you, Delon. Our next moderator for panel 2 is Minister Corinne Mack, President of NAACP in Mecklenburg County, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Good afternoon, beautiful people. I am Minister Corinne Mack, the president of the Charlotte Mecklenburg NAACP, founder and executive director for U2U, which stands for From Uprising to Uplifting, Uplifting to Unite. And I am humbly grateful for the opportunity to be before you today. Thank you to Reverend Woodbury of New Alpha and my sister, Miss Loretta, as well as First Lady Varys. We're going to go right into our second portion of the discussion. We have 5 additional wonderful leaders in this work, in this movement work, to uplift environmental change. Our first speaker will be the illustrious Reverend Leo Woodbury of New Alpha Community Development Corporation from Florence, South Carolina.
Thank you so much, Minister Mack, and to everyone who has come. We want to thank Congressman McEachin for once again coming and listening to the voices from the South and across this nation. This is our 3rd annual congressional briefing, and it has happened at a time that is both historical and momentous. And I love all of the remarks that have been made. They're really powerful, you know, from what we need to do with our forests to the fact that all of our churches and our faith institutions, 84% of the people on this planet describe themselves as people of faith. While we talk about creating new infrastructure, we have infrastructure like churches that exist, as well as, you know, hearing about how we need to develop more synergy, you know, how we have a roadmap, a Southern Communities Green New Deal that can be incorporated into the National Green New Deal and other platforms that speak to problems not only in the South, but also across this country. We're entering a new era. If we look at when the first Earth Day events took place in April of 1971, we have for the last 50 years finally arrived at a place where we're on the federal government's radar around climate change, environmental justice, and infrastructure. And we've had wonderful work done, but we also had an era of climate deniers, climate delayers, and also those who were in the business of greenwashing solutions because they listened not to climatologists, but to industry scientists. So where we are right now is that we are in a place where we must take advantage of this time, of this movement moment. We don't have another 50 years. And the answer, we believe, as others have said, in us implementing community-led solutions. We're in an era of implementation, whether you look at the Paris Agreement, the COP, the European Union's attempt to put together a Green New Deal, the RGGI states, states with renewable portfolios, cities that have signed resolutions to go 100% renewable. The one place where we don't have significant implementation is in the communities and on the ground. And there's no reason why that should be, because it is the people on the ground who will tell you where the ditches need to be cleaned out in rural communities, where earth dams need to be built, where rivers need to be dredged out. It's the community that has already started to put training, community in place training, going on across the country from Union Hill, Virginia, all the way to California. It is the community that understands that a lot of our infrastructure, like our water system, is based on an antiquated system that the Romans used. And instead, we can use solar-powered hydro panels to make sure that everyone has access to clean water, whether it's from water farms or units in your home that are off-grid, completely off-grid. And we don't have to worry about impacts like what is rampaging through Texas and also Mississippi at this time, where people cannot get clean drinking water. We have to look at creating some new structures, but they're based on structures that exist, like community action agencies, which are all across America, which are run by people in communities and receive federal funding. We must get the resources to the ground where it is needed most. So I say that we are now entered into a new era, that we must usher in a new era, an era where not only are we electrifying cars, but we're making sure that we're creating entrepreneurial opportunities, whether it's outdoor recreation or it's new cab services or mopeds that are powered by electricity. We can do small scale solar projects. We can do energy efficiency, but we must usher in an iron will. We must be focused on implementation, whether we're doing strategic planning, whether we're doing mapping, no matter what we're doing, it must be tied to implementation. It must be tied to action, which will lead to a just transition that is tangible and that can help us all. And so when I say an I will, I mean I, implementation, R, resoluteness, O, original thinking, and N, novel approaches. And we're already there. Last thing I want to say is this. Washington, D.C., where the congressman works out of, was built on stolen land from indigenous people and the labor of African Americans and immigrants. And the philanthropic community, which has billions, if not trillions of dollars, has been built off the suffering of people and the environmental justice that has led to the current climate crisis. And so just as we need reparations for colonized people and enslaved people, it's time to give reparations to those who have a legacy of suffering because of racial injustice, and give everyone an opportunity to have a just transition that's rooted in equity and ensures that all of us have a right to clean land, clean air, and clean water. Thank you all so much. Let's go forward. Let's change things, even if we have to do it like President Obama said, brick by brick, callous hand by callous hand. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Woodbury. As usual, speaking truth to power and elevating the conversation around the paradigm shift, in particular around the intersectionality of Black equity and the racializing even in the environmental spaces. It's so important that we understand what we're dealing with and what times we're in. But the important thing is that everyone on this call realizes that we have a responsibility. We are going to all be held accountable. And so I am excited about every speaker that's coming forth today. Our next panelist is none other than Michaela Sherrod, who's the Executive Director of the Agricultural Mission Incorporated.
Is she muted?
Michaela Sherrod, are you there? I don't, we may have lost them. I'm going to move on to the next speaker. We may get Michaela back. Our next panelist is none other than, I hope I say your name correctly. If not, please count into my head, not my heart. Aiko Schaefer, Director of Just Solutions out of Vermont.
Thanks. Thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to be with everyone today. I am in northern Vermont, where it's very cold compared to where it sounds like everyone else is. But we'll be talking a bit about what's happening on the West Coast, which is where I usually live. But I wanted to also respond a little bit to the conversation in the start of this meeting around the federal action around the 100% policy. So I might go a little off the agenda that I had planned today. So first, you know, what we are hearing on this call and what we know to be true across the country is that Black, Indigenous people of color are coming up with solutions in communities to really be able to address the climate crisis. And the Just Solutions Collective, that is our purpose, is to really be able to identify and pull together those leading ideas so that we can facilitate replication and scaling and implementation of these policy and program ideas. And so I'm happy to be able to share some of the learning and work that's happening across the country on behalf of those organizations that we work with. So if you look in the West Coast in particular, but I think when you look in many states across the country, where EJ advocates are actually working in state capitals, what you find is that they are developing amazing policy solutions that are particular to low-income communities and BIPOC communities. So if you look on the West Coast, you're seeing, you know, whether that's the Portland Clean Energy Fund, that is a 1% retail tax that is now investing money in weatherization and clean energy jobs and opportunities. You can see many ideas coming out of California, where we are trying to figure out how to get solar energy on multifamily households, or even in the state of Washington, where I live, really coming forward with the HEAL Act, which is a strategy to be able to get all the agencies in the state to work together to focus on the mapping of impacted communities to be able to drive policy design as well as investments in community. But, you know, I think what I wanted to focus on and spend a little bit more time on, because I'm concerned a bit about it, is the Clean Futures Act. So in the beginning, as you all know, President Biden has made a commitment to 100% clean energy future. Representative McEachin coming on the call mentioned that bill. It is in the Commerce and Energy Committee. And I've had the distinct challenge of reading a nearly 1,000-page bill over the last few days to really sort of dig in and to be able to understand what the content of that policy is. The first thing I'll say is that, you know, when you look at places like New York and Washington State and California, they have developed state 100% policies that have some really important elements to it. There's very strong oversight provisions. There is integrated mapping that looks at enforcement and where pollution is happening and how we're resolving the pollution. There's very clear elements around reducing energy burden, energy assistance, energy democracy, and that when you look clearly at the statutory language, the intent of it is very strong and is very clear in what it is we're hoping to see. And so when you look at all those states, those are EJ advocates that have really rolled up their sleeves and come up with really great ideas and innovative policy language. As I begin to and read through the federal bill, most of that learning, if not all of that learning, is not evident in that federal policy. And I think it causes great concern from the standpoint that, that those voices are not at those tables, and those voices are not playing a role to be able to bring forward what they've learned in local community, what they've learned in the state to begin to shape the federal policy. And so just, I'm hoping, and I'm going to share in the chat both a couple things with you all. So I'm going to share our website address. Oops, not what I'm sharing right now. I'm going to put in the chat box. Let me grab it here really quick. Our address, web address, and then I'm going to share with you a document that we created last year that is called the comprehensive, sorry, I'm trying to multitask here, the comprehensive building blocks for a just and regenerative 100% policy. And that particular document, we pulled together EJ experts, policy experts from across the country to be able to put together what they believe to be the ideal 100% policy. Let me just put that in the chat right there. And then let me put our web address as well. And so if you look at that document and you begin to compare again all those learnings and all those perspectives from EJ communities and leaders who've been working in state capitals and city halls across the country, a lot of those core elements are not in this federal bill. And so I think for us, while it's really great to see that we are having a conversation nationally about environmental justice, that we understand that that expertise lies within community, there's just a lot more work we have to do to be able to make sure that those lessons learned from states and communities are being brought into the federal conversation more explicitly. And so I'm hoping that there's an opportunity for us to talk with members of Congress, members of Congress from the Black Caucus and other places to be able to connect these local policy experts in environmental energy policy to congressional leaders as they begin this process. And just if people are not tracking the bill, I'm happy to share that information. It does cover not only 100% in terms of energy, there's pieces in there around electric vehicles if you care about transportation, of course, jobs, workforce development, covers water, broadly pollution. Like I said, it's almost 1,000 pages, so I'm not done with it yet. But there is a lot there. And I think in the coming weeks, my understanding is that the Biden administration right now, the staff are developing the content of what the president's 100% proposal may look like. There is a speculation that they're going to try to move 100% clean energy standard through the reconciliation process. I'm not as hopeful. I don't see that necessarily happening, but that is where the green groups are leaning and hoping it will happen. But nonetheless, as we head into this, I think between infrastructure decisions and this 100% clean energy standard and all that it bears, are going to be pretty significant conversations and efforts moving forward that have implications for everybody, our country, and hopefully does not also undo the work that's already been happening in a lot of these states that have figured out some good things. So I will stop there in the time that I have. So happy to talk more.
Thank you so much, Ms. Schaefer. Your words of wisdom were great. And honestly, once you get back past the 1,000 pages, it'd be great for you to give us a synopsis of what you got out of it. Make it easy for the rest of us. That'd be wonderful. God bless you. Our next panelist, we're going to go back to, which is Dana Claire Redden. Solar Concierge from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Reverend Leo, for the invitation, and certainly want to pick off of some of those words of wisdom shared earlier. Again, my name is Dana Claire Redden. I'm the founder and owner of a social enterprise called Solar Stewards. So for the past decade plus, to date myself, we've been working in and distributed solar generation in consulting and development. And so that was with my prior company, Solar Concierge, basically providing the opportunity to help who we call regular folks go solar with an impartial information. And a couple of years ago, as in 2016, in talking with Black churches, senior centers, a number of applications where we really couldn't make the economics compelling enough for the community leaders to move forward on the project, we began to innovate in the space and really come up with a way to get economical solar on these institutions. So when I say institutions, I'm talking about places of worship, I'm talking about daycares, schools, universities, senior centers, military housing, affordable housing, grocery stores and food deserts, hospital, anything having to do with healthcare. And so you can, continue that line of thinking into the types of applications that we work with. So we have a toolkit at Solar Stewards to help facilitate that, mostly through what's called a third-party solar agreement. Now, this is not exactly clarified in law everywhere everyone is sitting on this call. There are some restrictions in various states, and that has to do with that antiquated policy that we are typically familiar with. But that being said, we decided to really innovate in a way and leverage the investment of the private sector. So let me break that down a little bit. I'm very happy to represent the appetite for this sustainable and equity shift from the private sector. One thing that inspired me in 2016, when that guy from the past, I'm not even gonna speak his name, decided to pull out of the Paris Climate Accord, that the private sector just kept on moving. And so we thought, well, that's encouraging. I'm a small business owner, I'm a Black business owner, I'm a woman business owner. That is so encouraging. However, what we saw when you see a Google and Amazon, and you name it, big corporation make a climate goal, yes, they put those modules, those rectangular modules on their data centers and such, but what they also do is they go to the market and buy renewable energy credits, usually called RECs, solar RECs, very little known energy attribute that reaches the billions of dollars in transactions globally. So Solar Stewards started to explore how we could make sure to allocate that spend from the private sector in BIPOC communities, knowing that these corporations are spending this money to reach their own goals. However, they do it in what's called utility scale for the most part. And not to say that that isn't a positive impact, but we can certainly increase that impact by making sure those assets are located in Black and brown communities. So that's what Solar Stewards is here to do. First and foremost, we got to get the assets in our communities. So that is where our toolkit comes from, whether we can help facilitate a solar lease or a power purchase agreement, third party, all of that. But in addition, we are making sure that corporations buy their renewable energy credits from our communities, and also on a key and clutch at a value that recognizes the value of our communities. So it's been quite a whirlwind. We started again around 5 years ago. They were so complex. I mean, they just couldn't really understand why they should allocate part of their spend in our communities. Fast forward to 2020, what a racial awakening. Totally got it, like a light bulb. Now we're helping them to facilitate what that value looks like and aggregating those projects so that we reach that scale of impact. So that's what Solar Stewards does. But I see that our title of my topic is the democratization of energy. This is something I'm extremely passionate about. And how I can break this down is our innovation within rec markets is just the midpoint. When we go in and first and foremost help facilitate putting these panels, solar assets in our communities, that's number one, step number one. Two is bringing that, private sector capital to help enhance that offering, again, so that we can include those extras, might it be workforce development or making sure it's storage ready, STEM and STEAM educational tools, that's great. But that's just the mid part. When we facilitate these assets and these transactions, what we're actually also doing is creating that smart grid network. So in the future, right now we have this very centralized system of energy where, that coal plant sits, in that community, as toxic as it is. And then we wire all the, through the transmission lines out, all the electricity to our communities. Because of technology, now we're seeing a distributed network of energy. And that means we can co-locate them in our communities. In addition to that, we're seeing an opportunity for smart grids to buy that energy from these distributed energy resources, or DERs. There's a little acronym for you, DG, distributed generation, another one I use somewhat interchangeably. So if they're going to be buying energy from our communities, that is a major economic opportunity for us to sell into the grid these power generation sources. It's really an economic driver. So that's how we see energy. That's how we see the democratization of energy. How that happens, whether you're using blockchain to administer those transactions, whether it's a wholesale into the grid, whether it's between people like a peer-to-peer energy marketplace, which personally I feel is the future. However way you swing it, it's economic development. It's a way not only to save people money on energy bills, and we're very cognizant of that. We want to reduce the energy burden for our communities first and foremost, but we also feel as if revenue is a little sexier than savings. So if we can bring in that actual monetization of those assets, that's our end goal. We saw that FERC said last year in September in a federal Energy Regulatory Commission that they are going to include distributed energy resources in their wholesale markets. That was the green light to say, we're going to be buying from these assets. So let's not miss out on this completely transformational moment in time to make sure that our Black and Brown communities are able to participate in these new markets. And that's basically the gist of the Solar Stewards program. I'm going to put my website in the chat. Would love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn. If I haven't pinged you already, please do stay connected with me. Certainly, we're always looking for host sites. Again, those that we can help just to facilitate that solar deployment. We're also very excited to build out our network of community partners. And those are basically the beneficiaries and those that we really make sure to tap for that grassroots information that we need to make sure that we're approaching communities in an appropriate way, one that meets those needs of the community. And I can give a couple examples. I think I'm over my time right now. But that being said, please do stay connected with me. Let me know how we can bring our resources to this great work. This is a beautiful event. I've been so inspired. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your presentation. You not only dealt with economic development, but you also dealt with solar democracy. And I want to add a third piece there. This is a perfect opportunity to use your work as an entry-level educational process to the Black and Brown and Indigenous communities. Some folks who don't understand what environmental justice looks like, or opportunities for them to have clean air and clean energy in ways that they don't have right now. So I'm excited to work with you in some way through the Justice First work that we do. Thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you.
I want to first make sure that we're not missing Michaela. Did Michaela return by any chance before we move on? Reverend Leo, do you see her? Because I don't. I'm going to move on to the next speaker. Prayerfully, we'll get Michaela back. Our next speaker will be Monica Patrick, Executive Director for We the People of Detroit. One of my favorite places, Detroit.
Thank you so much, Pastor Mack. And so we bring you greetings from the great city of Detroit, and we are so elated to be here with you. It is just an honor when we got the email and it said the great Leo Woodbury was summoning us to a meeting. We couldn't help but stop everything and respond. And I also want to just thank Dr. Jalon White Newsom, who's a daughter of the city of Detroit. And we are so proud of her and our great brother, Dr. Mustafa Ali. We do this work as a collaborative in terms of social justice and the revolutionary thought that people deserve clean, safe, and affordable water. And so as we want to talk today, I just want to give you context to how we came into this work. My work is headed up by 5 amazing Black women that decided that we didn't have to ask permission to save ourselves. And so because we stood on the shoulders of other amazing women that had fought in the city of Detroit for clean, safe, and affordable water, they told us to deputize ourselves in 2014, that we couldn't wait on anybody to come save or rescue us. And to also note that right now that research and data is going to be a critical part of what we needed to bring to the forefront. So in 2017, what we recognized is that we already knew from work that had been headed up by Dr. Elizabeth Mack that 11.9% of the nation was already challenged with the inability to afford their water. According to her research, we were already on pace before COVID for about 35.6% of the nation not to be able to afford their water. We're already there, y'all. We're already there. The water burden debt that is resting on the backs of rural Black and brown folks is already overwhelming and unbearable. We are telling you that there is a systemic difference between water affordability and water assistance. Water assistance says is I have some money, I'll give you some money. But what water affordability says is that we are going to intentionally create an income tiered based system that will ensure that every human life has access to clean, safe, and affordable water. Many of the policies that you're seeing roll out in Philadelphia and now being emulated in Baltimore were headed up by amazing legislative leaders and champions like the great Dr. Joanne Watson. Dr. Watson, along with Marianne Mahaffey, created and crafted something with an amazing economist by the name of Roger Colton, who drafted the policy along with Philadelphia and moved it forward also in Baltimore. So what I'm telling you is Detroit already knows what the solution is for water affordability. What I'm asking all of us is to deputize ourselves and begin to move that policy forward. Water affordability not only is good for us at a local level, it's good for us at a state and national level. It has the ability to generate revenue because what we know is if you create an income structure that people can afford, people will pay to keep their water on. There is nothing more dehumanizing than the inability to wash your hands or flush your toilet. What I also would say to you is this: Detroit is the canary in the mine of what not to do, but we also can show you what to do. We have partnered with groups and other organizations across the nation, and we have policy templates that we can offer to you. Our work that we have done that has been nurtured by Jalon White Newsom through the funding that she was able to offer. Policy Link has adopted some of that legislative work with great leaders like Colette Bashan Battle. And so we have a template at the national level for water affordability. We need you to join that effort and move it. We also know that it must be tie-barred to workforce development. Our babies must be tooled up in the skilled trades. All of the trades will connect to any green sustainable effort. So if we can invest in the skilled trades, connect that to vocational trades, to anything that's going to move education and employment, that will get our people back to work. The other thing that we know that is tie-bar to this is inequities and injustices. We know that 37 states across this country have some form of austerity measures already on the books. This has already been funded through ALEX, the American Legislative Exchange Council. They already have money geared up to move this legislation. So what we have got to be prepared to do is to speak with one voice in terms of how we tell the federal government and the state government and the local government to define disadvantaged communities. Can we agree, family, to come up with one definition for disadvantaged communities? Brother Mustafa has already given us the equation. We must be demanding the 40%. The other thing that I would say to you is mapping. We don't have to wait on folks to tell us how to map. Some of our HBCUs are some of the greatest at math and science in the world. I didn't say the state or the nation, I said the world. So if we tap into that power of science and math and data, then we can begin to map our own communities and create our own solutions that tie-bar real-time responses. I'm gonna put some stuff in the link because I can go long on this because I'm not playing. I don't have enough whole lot of time to ensure that my children's children can drink clean, safe, and affordable water. We, the people of Detroit, has done citizens-based science. We are partnering right now. Somebody's echoing, please mute because I'm gonna finish up quick. We are doing a water sampling project right now in the city of Detroit to look at lead quality. We are partnering with Flint because Flint has already shown us what to do. They have the first youth-led water testing lab in the nation. Through that partnership, our children are learning how to test water, learning the scientific process of making sure that it's meeting all of the scientific rigor, and they will be able to model this training for other youth throughout the Great Lakes and throughout the nation. We believe that tacking on to this STEM process of gathering our young people and then using their ingenuity and their creativity will take us where we want to go. And so we have something called the QUIRC, the Community Resource Energy Water Center. It will generate revenue that will allow us to decentralize these huge wastewater systems, but also bring wastewater solutions to our rural communities. I'm gonna put that information in the link. I am so elated to be here with you. I wanna do everything in my power along with the people of Detroit to ensure clean, safe, and affordable water for all Americans. Thank you for my time.
My sister. Did you say you were a preacher? Because you sure enough preached. You preached. Oh, yes. Such a word. And your passion was felt even on this virtual discussion. We thank you so much for really going to the real issue, which is environmental racism, and connecting the dots across every facet that affects Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. We thank you so much for that word. That was really, truly a word. I don't know if Michaela is on the call. I don't believe that Michaela is here, so we're going to move on. I want to first thank Congressman Donald McEachin for being a friend and a brother and the voice in the halls of Washington, D.C. around environmental justice. You are absolutely loved and respected. We thank you. Also, would like to thank my brother, who has done so much, Brother Mustafa Santiago Ali, who is phenomenal and brilliant in his presentations, in his walk, and in his work. And thank also our other speaker, which is Alara Carter, who I absolutely adore. every person on this call in some way sacrifices, because we know that we are responsible and accountable to ensure that everyone on this earth and in this world is safe. We want to thank you in advance of what you are about to do, and thank you for the things you've already done. We know
Excuse
that
me,
those
Minister.
sacrifices.
Michaela Sherrod is on.
Oh, okay, great. So we'll go back because I'm long with it also. I'll be going on and on and on. So Michaela, would you like to begin? Are you ready, or do you need a few seconds?
No, I'm ready. I'm ready. And I apologize for missing that, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak.
No worries.
So I can pick up here and I'll just be brief. So my name is Michaela Sherrod, and I'm the Executive Director of Agricultural Missions. And so we're our organization has been around since the 1930s, and we're formed in partnership with the churches to look at solutions in communities of color and rural areas that focus on agriculture. And we also have a very strong social justice mission. So we truly believe that, food sovereignty, that communities should own their own food systems, be able to produce their food, that it should be their native traditions and cultures that should drive that and to drive those local economies so that it's sustainable and so that everyone can benefit. So as you all know, just the changes that we have right now, just with climate, we see some very severe challenges in rural communities around the world. So agricultural missions does work right now it's primarily in Africa, in Sierra Leone and Liberia, and over 40 different villages in those two countries. And we also work with organizations that work with farmers and rural communities of color in the United States. And so what we're seeing is that just all over that there are these challenges that, although everyone is facing these challenges related to weather, for these poor communities and under-resourced communities, it presents particular challenges. So what we're seeing, for farmers, we're seeing that, with these rains where they're no longer able to, where they're finding that they're not able to sustain their livelihood. We see the droughts as well that are impacting them. They're having to find other ways of farming and producing food. We see rural communities that are no longer having a lack of access. And we also see that, and particularly now where you see with COVID-19, and then also just with all the storms that we've seen lately, you see that there's some real challenges to our food system, and we see that it's really broken, and that this is the time that we really need to rebuild it. And we need to rebuild something that is sustainable, that really prioritizes these local economies, that prioritizes small farmers, that engages and helps to rebuild our Black farming community. And so in doing this, we can then have those ties to rural communities and rural people who don't have a say in access to food and how the system actually operates and benefits them. And so what we see now, is that in this aftermath of everything, that there's a need to come together and to have new conversations around what this can look like. What does this new food system look like? How do we prioritize rural communities of color? How do we engage them? And how do we make sure that farmers, that Black farmers, have the resources that they need, that they have the access to capital and resources, that they have solutions that help them to adapt and mitigate climate change as well. So I'll stop there because I know we're coming to the end, and I just again want to thank you and apologize for being late.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We really appreciate the fact that you were able to make it to talk to us about agriculture and farming and all the Black farmers who are being harmed at this time. I would like to turn this over to Varys if she's still available. Before I do, I want to once again say thank you to each and every person who had the heart and mind to be here today. We know that we all are very, very busy, but this work is our life work. That's what it is. It's our life work. And the passion that came forth today, the excellence that came forth today is so appreciated. Thank you so much. So Pastor Woodbury and First Lady Varys, I will turn it back over to you.
Reverend Matt, Minister Mack, we have some questions or comments from Chief Preston Pete Paw of the PD Indian Tribe, and we might have a couple of minutes where we'll be able to let him ask this question. I don't think it's in the chat.
That's fine. I didn't see any questions in the chat. So Chief Pete, you could unmute and ask your question. Any additional questions, please place them in the chat for us. Thank you. Could everyone please mute themselves?
Hello.
Oh my gosh.
I was gonna send you a
Oh Jesus.
send you a message. I was
Yeah,
gonna.
he doesn't seem to be able to unmute himself or put it in the chat. So if you'd like to close out at this time, that would be great. Mm-hmm.
Well, are there any additional questions before we close out?
Can I give a quick shout out?
Sure.
Thank you. One thing I neglected to mention in my 5 minutes was the emergence of an association for Black owners of solar services. So BOSS is our little acronym, is here to facilitate solar through the lens of entrepreneurship and Black business. We can be found at blacksolar.org. We've been crafting and informing DEI initiatives from SEIA, that's Solar Energy Industries Association, ACOR, et cetera, E2, the Honold Foundation. So certainly we're working on making sure that we inform policy and bring these resources, provide a pipeline to bring these resources to our communities. So that's BOSS, Black Owners of Solar Services. And I needed to get that out. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you look in the chat, we also have a pledge that we would like for you to sign from Monica Lewis Patrick. Take the pledge to affordable water. It's in the chat and you can copy that and take the pledge as well. Are there any additional questions or statements before we close?
I just want to piggyback a little bit off of what Mikayla Sherrod from Agricultural Missions Incorporated stated. Ag Missions was planning before COVID to do some small scale solar projects in Sierra Leone and Liberia. And we would just like to encourage the congressman and other policymakers that when they are looking at global solutions and funding work in other communities, let's not forget that we have a wealth of experience and knowledge and ways to implement community solutions right here in the United States. And that is another funding opportunity that could be made available to folks in the United States, particularly people of color, who, while they're rebuilding their communities, can help to rebuild and transform communities in other parts of the world as well. And thank you to everyone.
Thank you once again. We pray that everyone stays safe, as well as your families. We look forward to seeing you again, coming together again in power and in love. God bless you all. Thank you.
Minister Mack, you still on?
Everybody turn.
I am.
I didn't
still
see
here.
anything. I didn't